USA's party, the chat after the chat, the party after the party. Normally, we have this right after the chat on Tuesdays. Unfortunately, I was a little ill, so we rescheduled, and I'm so grateful because I have with me today Ryan Foland. Ryan, welcome to USA Biz Party.
Ahoy, it's great to be here. I'm glad you're feeling better as well.
Me too. Started a new training regimen, so that kind of, I guess, just took me down for a couple of days. But you are a speaker.
Yes.
You are a writer.
Yes.
You are a ginger.
Yes.
Ginger. And you are a sailboater?
A sailor, yeah.
A sailor. There we go. Yeah. So how do you bring all of that together?
Well, the one easy way to bring anything together is to stick to 3. So you had 4 there, but I'll sort of choose any given 3. So this is a good rule of thumb. If you do a lot of different things and you want to learn how to introduce yourself, just choose 3. So I'm a speaker, an author, and a sailor. Or I'm a ginger, I'm a speaker, and I'm a sailor. I'm an author, speaker, ginger. You have those different combinations. But the mistake sometimes people make up front is that they just are into I'm a this and 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 this. So I think we are all a lot of different things, but if you keep it to 3, it keeps it palatable. And the reason I'm a ginger, well, it's in my genes, and it's one of the things that I was made fun of as a kid for, and so I've sort of come full circle, and I've claimed that, and I feel like my freckles are little solar panels. And yeah, sure, it gives me cancer at the end of the day, but it also gives me the energy, and I feel that I'm just a bit of a ginger person in general. So there you go.
Awesome. Well, we're so glad to have you. If you are joining us live, thank you. Please say hello in the chat. We can run your comments right around the bottom. And if you have questions, Ryan can absolutely answer them. If you are on the replay, thank you so much. Please share this with your friends on social media. Let them know we're here. It's not our usual time to meet, but this will be available for you to take a look at later and share with your buddies. So we invited Ryan to join us to talk about storytelling, because when I was talking to somebody, I said, I really need somebody who can talk stories. They said, oh my gosh, you have to you have to
You can use me, it's okay.
Okay, use whatever we need to do. Ryan Foland. And I think one of the things that really stood out, besides the amazing content that you shared about storytelling, is your pictures. Your pictures.
My stick figures, yes.
Exactly, your stick figures. And so let's talk a little bit. Well, we did a lot of talking about storytelling, how important it is for business, how really valuable it can be in your business for a lot of different reasons. But sometimes, and there are really great ways to tell stories. So maybe we can go really quickly through what makes a good story before we get into what we want to avoid in telling our story.
Sure. Well, let's get a little bit deeper into the rabbit hole and go one step before that, which is like, what is a story? Because I think when we look and we define what a story is, it helps us understand what stories we have. And oftentimes people say, well, I don't have a story to tell, or I'm not sure what to do. So a story can be as simple as a conversation. I mean, think about the last time that you were with your friends, or you're talking with people you haven't seen in a while, and they ask you like, how's it going? How was your weekend? Maybe you went on a vacation. Whatever words come out of your mouth that you pair together, creating the who, what, when, where, why, how, and sort of you're replaying it, that's a story. So regardless of whether or not you think you have a story, I believe that we are all storytellers. And it's one of the fundamental, relatable, intriguing parts of the way that we communicate. You know, cavemen, all the way up until now, we're always telling stories. So if we give a nice broad definition, that's a good place to start.
Awesome. Let's see, let me get this right here. Super. So basically, storytelling is what we do on a regular basis. We talk in stories, really, unless you're talking to my husband who's a pilot, and then he says, just give me the Reader's Digest. And I'm laughing, thinking, I don't know how to get this down any farther, but I'll do my best. And even then, that's a story.
Yeah. And I'll also point out real quick that a lot of times we are not only telling stories to others, but we're also telling stories to ourselves. And if you think about the way that you frame things, like I'm not good enough, or you tell you tell yourself the story that you're nervous, or you tell yourself the story that you're anxious, or you tell yourself the story that you don't have a story to tell. That's actually a story that you're telling to yourself. So I really think that sometimes, even if we're not out there communicating stories, we might be telling ourselves a story that we're not a good storyteller. And if we believe it because we are telling ourselves that story, it just goes to show the power of storytelling, whether it's to other people or our actual selves.
Oh, that's a good point. I guess I never really thought about that, but it is very true. The stories we tell ourselves, we tend to believe those more than we tend to believe anything else,
Well,
right?
it's not only that, it's that we tend to look for data that supports the stories. And
Mm.
so if you have, let's say, a story that's saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. I've got this live stream and I'm anxious about it." Okay? Then you're telling yourself that story. So all the data points that you see up until the point of the live stream, you're going to interpret. And there might be some very clear signs that you are prepared and you're well deserving of this and it's going to be fun, but you don't really look at those. You focus on the way that you're feeling, or you start to question yourself. There's this thing called confirmation bias, which is fascinating. As humans, evolutionarily, we want to believe that we're correct. And there's nothing worse, or there's nothing more of a threat to us than if somebody tells us that we're wrong. It's like, what do you mean I'm wrong? Like, what I'm believing is correct. But it's the story that we're telling ourselves and the data points that we're finding, seeing, and collecting to support our own stories. So again, just another little nuance here as we dive into the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I think we all, I agree. I agree. We tend to look for those things that confirm our thought process. And if we go to somebody, or let's say we have somebody we're working with and they are telling themselves a certain story, no matter what we say, it doesn't seem to be enough to change. I mean, it doesn't change what they're telling themselves at all.
Right.
They just tend to believe, I mean, we all tend to believe what we have confirmed to ourselves.
And storytelling is a great way to put more data out there. And if you're telling stories about your products, and if you look at customer testimonials as really stories of how they're interacting with your product, if you get a referral, a word of mouth referral, it's typically somebody. I mean, look, you just talked about this. You were asking somebody for some help that you needed, and they told you about me. The way they probably packaged it was, it could be in essence a story. Now, we can always tell our stories better. We can give better word of mouth referrals. Our testimonials can be more colorful. There's ways to sort of elaborate on the core of a story so that it sets up some of the foundational ways that we interpret information. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. It really, really does. And of course, we want to get better at storytelling, which is why you are here. Um,
So let's dive into some of, we know what a story is.
mhm.
Let's talk a little bit about how to tell a story. And really, just when I talk about how, it's more of the components to consider including. Now, you mentioned that one of the things in the tweet chat was my stick figure drawings, and drawing is a way of telling stories visually. Okay, we're all very visual. And I want to share with you some insights about drawing that you can utilize for your storytelling.
Cool.
When we look at something visually, like when you walk into a room, okay, what you're doing without knowing is that you are figuring out your setting. Your brain is going, okay, I see right angles on the walls. It looks like there's a window over there. The ceiling's about 10 feet high. I'm on the floor. There's a light there. And you're actually, before you know it, you're sort of scanning out the environment. And once you know that you're in a room so that you don't like run into a wall, you know the parameters, then you can start to digest what's in the room. And the same thing happens with a story. One of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is they don't set the scene. And some of the most basic framework of getting people to know that there's this room or this environment that you're bringing them to is who was involved, where did it take place, what actually happened, when did it take place, why did it happen, and how did you feel? So a really good way to start a story would be to set that scene. So be like, I will never forget, it was 2008. It was around the end of October, and I remember because I was worried about what I was going to wear for Halloween. And I was with 2 or 3 of my good friends, and we were sitting around a table, and then it happened. And just like it doesn't matter what the story goes on from there. I've set the scene. I've told you when it was, where it was, who I was with, and you start to sort of put together these elements. And if you think when you read something, you read a book, you read a novel, it does all of this for you. It sets the scene so you can interpret it. So who, what, when, where, how, why. Those are the cornerstones to a story. And if you're developing your story, just write down who, what, when, where, why, who, how, and then start to document those things. And now you have the characters, you have the setting, you have the mood, you have the insights, you have the motivations, and you have the lessons learned, all from who, what, where, when, why, how.
And now I want to know what happened.
Well, that was when the market crashed, and my friends were people that I had worked with, and we did not realize that singular moment would completely and drastically affect not only the company that we worked at, our own jobs, sort of the market, the economy, and there's a lot of lessons that are pulled from that story. Sometimes when you hear the news, you see what happens and you're like, oh, wow, that's pretty bad. You don't realize how bad it can be for you. That was the start of kind of a downward spiral. One of my falls from grace that was due to an economic collapse. And a lot of us got caught up in that.
You know, it reminds me of where I was and who I was on the phone with, where and why I was with my daughter. So I was at my daughter's house. It was March 10th. And I got a text from my daughter in California who said, Mom, have you seen that they're giving us spring break? And I'm like, she wasn't supposed to get spring break. And I said, let me check my email. So sure enough, I did. And lo and behold, pandemic. That was the moment the pandemic struck home, when all of a sudden I'm getting phone calls from all my kids and they're all coming home now. And they're like, oh, it's going to be a week or two. And I'm laughing going, I don't think so. But yeah.
But the way you just set that up, like, I mean, I'm literally getting chills because like the pandemic was such a powerful, weird moment for all of us. And to have that one moment in time, you set the scene. And that's just a great example of starting the story by making sure people know where the walls are and how high the ceiling is and what the atmosphere is. And if you want to create more color in your story and create more vividness, then you think about things like what it smelled like, what it felt like, what you actually saw, what you heard, all of the sensory organs. And so you're like, I remember, I distinctly remember smelling bacon because it was 9 o'clock and like, I'm like, oh, it just sets you into that, right? Or I was feeling in between nervous and anxious and I couldn't figure out what that feeling was. And now we're like, oh, she's feeling. So the who, what, when, where, why, how. But then if you really want to make it more colorful, play to the senses. What did you smell? What did you see? What did you hear? And that just makes your story come alive.
And when we're telling a story about business, how does that help us connect with our customer? Because obviously that's where we're not telling stories just to write a book. We're telling stories to connect with customers. By the way, if you're watching, thank you. So
a lot of times people don't necessarily buy your product. They might buy the story of your product. They might buy into the story of your company. They might buy into your story and how you started as a matter of how you are a credible expert, right? People don't want to invest in you making mistakes. And so if you share your mistakes of your past, which is your experience, then that sort of showcases your expertise. Now, when it comes to business and storytelling, another thing to understand, if we're talking about our brain here and sort of this biology, is that there's the sort of the stem of your brain, which is one of the oldest parts of your brain. If you look at the evolution of the brain, right, it has that stem and it grows. And the most recent is the prefrontal cortex, which does all the analytics and all the higher level thinking. What a lot of businesses don't realize is that if you don't get past the croc brain, right, which is the part of the brain that looks for stimulus so that you don't die, so that somebody doesn't attack you, so that somebody doesn't make love with you, or that you don't, these are all instinctual, fight or flight. So if you have a shiny product and you're trying to sort of showcase it or create awareness of it, if you just go, here's a shiny object, buy it, your brain might see that as an actual threat. My first TEDx talk is called How to Not Get Chased by a Bear. And it talks about this psychology where in the modern day world, there's not as many bears that are coming out of the woods and attacking us, okay? But an email could be a bear, or a call from your mom could be a bear, excuse me, or a call from your boss, or just a pandemic hitting. All these things that are not bears, we react to them, or we go, we tense up. Do we fight or do we flight? And so this is like a humanistic sort of core trait. Let's say you go to the dealership because you think that, you're maybe in the mood to entertain the idea of a new car. If you have a salesperson who just comes and tries to sell you a car right out the gate, doesn't build any rapport, doesn't create any connection, then your croc brain is going to stop everything. You're just not even going to entertain it. And I think we've all been sort of sold before we're connected with. And so stories is a great way to connect past the croc brain, which allows your whole body to be open to products and services and things because you don't feel threatened, right? When you get a telemarketer call, you're like immediately, and there's a pushback.
Yeah.
But if you're talking with somebody and you're reading their story online and you're getting to know them, or if you meet somebody and part of their initial conversation is telling a story about why they work there or a story about how the product changed their life, it's stories that gets past the croc brain so that you can have a conversation with somebody and they'll actually listen. They'll actually want to know more information.
Yeah, that's where testimonials become so powerful because people are sharing their experiences. And a lot of times testimonials are even more powerful because it's not you sharing your experience. It's somebody talking about how great you were or what you did for them that changed their life. And then of course the story is even more poignant for the listener than even if you're telling your own story.
Yeah. It's, you're selling the sizzle, not the steak. And the sizzle is how that steak fits into your appetite. And it's all part of sort of rapport building. And this is why it's important to have small talk. And small talk is a great opportunity to practice your storytelling. So you hop onto a Zoom, or maybe it's an intro call, or it's a discovery call with somebody that you're maybe considering working with. And there's, hey, how's it going? How are you? Oh, it's good. It's fine. You're missing an opportunity for a story. Like, what did you do this weekend? You could create a reenactment of your fun adventure to Catalina, where you built a fire pit to get the cove summer ready and find places to connect. And then all of a sudden, you're a little bit more comfortable, and now you can continue on with a conversation that will feel more connected because the person's going to be open to it. And storytelling just really brings your product to life. I mean, there's so many widgets and there's so many services and there's so many things, but how can somebody see themselves in that story and see that product or service as working with the stories of their life, right? Because those stories are unfolding all the time as people use your product to solve the problems that you have. Hopefully we're not getting too metaphysical here, but it really is. I mean, at the end of the day, storytelling is kind of it may sound a little woo-hoo, but when you actually look at how you are telling stories now and how some of the best brands in the world, I mean, marketing and advertisement is communicating through storytelling.
It is. I remember when I got my first bout of sales training. Now, I didn't think I was a salesperson. I hated sales. I would go to a car dealership and I would think, oh, thank goodness I don't have to live like those people do. And, here I am.
Yeah, high pressure, you're just like sell.
Exactly. And then what led me to work with this particular sales trainer was he told his story about how he was at the bottom of the barrel. And I have to say, when I started sales training with this guy, I felt like I couldn't sell my way out of a paper bag. Matter of fact, I knew I couldn't because I was so terrible at it. But because he shared all of even the little pieces of how he was able to work his way out of it using the techniques that he was going to be sharing, it was a no-brainer for me, because I'm like, I can relate to that. I don't need to learn from a Brian Tracy, even though I later found out Brian Tracy had some of the same issues I had, but rather I could learn from somebody who had used those techniques to get themselves out of a mess. And stories are super valuable, and I think they're super important, and I think they're critical to any kind of marketing, advertising, or sales at all.
Yeah, and I'll give everyone here a nice structure for storytelling that works, especially from a framework perspective. If you think of your timeline of the amount of time that you're going to be sharing a story, let's just say it's a 2-minute story. Okay. And if you're speaking for more than 2 minutes, it might be a little bit long in today's kind of, sort of flash in the pan attention span. But if you have the who, what, when, where, why, how, you're playing to the senses and you're explaining sort of what happened. That's the first, let's say, half of this 2 minutes. At a certain point, once you've told the story, it's very important that you tie it back to who's listening. And a good bridge between your story and the lesson or what you want people to take away from it is literally saying, the reason I'm telling you this is because, and then that's a transition into the life lessons. So you can tell a story about something that happened to you or being at the bottom of the barrel and create relatability, create rapport, create connectivity. And it sounds like, to some extent, after that story was established, then he transitions. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is that I know exactly where you're starting. It's exactly where I started. But what I found is that these methods and technologies that I learned helped me gain the confidence and the courage to sell. And then the experience came with, practicing under pressure. And so right there, what you have is a story, then a transition of why it makes sense to the listener. And then that's really a powerful model. Because if you're just telling somebody a story and there's no moral or there's no lesson or there's nothing for the audience, you're like, why are you telling me the story? And there are some people who just talk and talk and talk, and they might not have that transition to the learning lesson.
Oh, that's a really important point. That is a really, really important point for anybody that's using storytelling, because I think sometimes, and myself included, I've gotten so into the story that I have forgotten to tell the reason for the story.
And you can't assume that the person listening knows, right?
Exactly.
What's powerful about this is that you can take stories that are seemingly unrelatable to your business and you can connect them through the lessons that you've learned. So we could do a little real-time discovery here. What's something that has gone wrong in the last few months that you can think of? Something that went wrong in your life or went wrong in your business, something that didn't necessarily go right.
Okay, well, there's all I could draw.
Okay, but it doesn't have to be even in business. It could be walking the dog. It could be,
Okay, I have the perfect one. I was walking out of the store. I had groceries. I was on the phone with my daughter, and my foot turned out. And the next thing I know, I am on the ground in a tremendous amount of pain. And
so we know where this is going. Okay. So if we just look at that as a little story, you missed a few of the who, what, when, where, why, how. You had a couple of them, but I didn't know when this happened. So you could have said it was 2 weeks ago. I was coming out of the grocery store. I had a grocery bag and I had my phone in my hand and I was talking with my daughter. And then all of a sudden, my ankle gave out and I found myself on the floor. The groceries sprawled all over the place. I could hear the eggs cracking in the moment as I went down. And I just felt this crazy pain coming from my left ankle. And I thought to myself, oh my God, did I just break my ankle? Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because throughout your daily activities, whether it's going to the grocery store or checking your email, if you're too distracted and you're taking too much on at any given point, carrying while talking on the phone, while typing an email, you may not know it, but you may step into a pothole and you may actually not actually hurt yourself, but totally set yourself back from what you want to do. So slow down, put the phone down if you're doing something, focus on one thing at a time, and you can save yourself not only from a broken ankle, but you can make sure that you're blah, 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 blah. Again, we're just making this up.
Right.
But it's a story. The reason I'm telling you this, and then here's some sort of lesson, like life lesson or business takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
And if that story happened 5 years ago, but that kind of was an inciting incident that made you realize you were just doing too much stuff. And that is the reason why you stopped, not stopped shopping, but stopped trying to do too many things for your customers. And so you as a business have decided to focus on just one thing, and that is delivering this single product. I'm not somebody who's carrying a bag and talking on the phone. I'm not going to trip and fall with you because I'm super focused, and I learned that before. And again, the connections are almost unlimited because you're taking human relatable stories. Yeah. And then now you're saying, like, this is applying to the way that I do business. I'm not going to break an ankle working with you and sort of disappear because I know that I'm going to put the grocery bag down. I'm just going to carry those eggs. You are the eggs. They're not going to crack. Like whatever. We're just being creative here. But
yeah, this is fun. This is so much fun. So much fun. Now, you have a book, and I meant to ask you about that, but tell me more about your book. Ditch that one. Yeah.
Ditch the Act. Yes. It's a story in not taking yourself as seriously. It's a story about what's gone wrong in my life, and then understanding why it's important to share what goes wrong in your life, and then how to share what goes wrong in your life. And we just had an example about something going wrong, falling down, carrying groceries, being distracted. That's just the tip of the iceberg of examples. And what I've found is that people tend to create content and share things that really only shed the good light. This is all the amazing stuff that happened. I got featured on this podcast. I was on this tweet chat. Look at all these things. Look at me. Hey, business success, new client in, new this, new that. But what we don't realize is that people really don't care about our story of success. They care about how they see themselves in our story.
Oh, say that again.
People don't care as much about your story of success, but they do care about how they see themselves in your story. And if you position yourself as the guru and the person who's never been at the bottom, and you're sort of just showing all the flash and all the good, all the highlight reel, you're curating your content so everything people see is just totally perfect. The problem with that is that they'll see you as somebody that they don't relate to. And so the book is about how being human is one of the best ways to get ahead in business. And it's being a little bit goofy, maybe just being yourself, sharing little things that go wrong. The other week, I think it was last Monday, and then something felt a little bit off. And I recognized that on the fourth trip to the microwave to reheat my coffee, it hit me. I'm totally distracted this morning. 4 different times I've let my coffee go from hot to cold to put it in the microwave to try it again. And that actual activity was kind of embarrassing just to myself. It was kind of like a realization, like, this Monday's not going right. So I shared that as a tweet. And that single tweet was the most engaged, the most impression, the most replied to. It was the tweet of last week because so many people were able to relate to having their coffee go cold and then reheating it, and their coffee going cold and reheating it. And it's that relatability. And it also allows people to help. I had so many people give me suggestions and technologies and tips. And one company actually entered the thread, and they're sending me a personal heater. That's like a little heater for your cup. So you can plug it in your desk and you set your cup on it, and it keeps your cup warm. So because I shared this stupid story about going to the microwave 4 different times, right? The reason I'm telling you this story is because it's those small moments, the little flubs, the things that don't go right. When you share that, that's what actually connects people. That's what makes them see that, oh, you're just like me. I feel like I could have tweeted that. And that's the power of storytelling, especially storytelling things that aren't the highlight reel, but they're the highlight REAL. There's nothing more frightening than being vulnerable and sharing maybe how you're really feeling or what you're really thinking. But when you can create a culture like that in a work environment, in my job at UCI, I can share anything with my boss and he shares what's going on with him. We're not just checking in saying everything's great. Yeah. And that type of a relationship is one where I want to work hard for him. He wants to help support me in my professional career. So from cold coffee to dropping your groceries and twisting your ankle, you have stories that happen every day. And when you can relate them back to your business, your life, you're more relatable and you're more human.
Oh, I love it. So really, we all have stories.
Life is a series of stories. But if you decide to participate in your own storytelling, that's when you start to participate in your own personal brand. If you're not the one that's helping to share your own stories, people are going to make up their own stories based on what they see, the brand crumbs and the content that you create. So the more active we are in creating and owning our own stories, the whole story, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that's what truly is like the center line of who you are and how you show up. And that story that you create is what people will buy into.
This has been so interesting. I've loved stories forever. And I've thoroughly enjoyed, I was told how relatable you are, how fun you are to be with, obviously.
We'll blame it on the freckles.
And the reason for this is because we also want you to connect with Ryan. So Ryan, tell people how they can connect with you.
Yeah, you can find me, Ryan, online, ryan.online. Not a .com, a ryan.online. And I have a really cool newsletter. I think it's cool because it's simple. And guess what? It just has 3 things. Something for you to listen to, something for you to watch, and something for you to see. There's that 3 showing up again. So if you do want to sign up, you go to ryan.online/sign up. And we have a special for those who are signing up as a result of this broadcast. I'm going to randomly select one, and I will reach out and send you your own copy of Ditch the Act. So find me at ryan.online. And if you want a chance of getting a book, then go to ryan.online/sign up. And then you'll see me in your inbox every once in a while.
Awesome. Awesome sauce. Let's get back
Awesome sauce. Yeah.
Awesome sauce. Yeah, that's my new thing, even though I'm probably too old to be saying stuff like that. But that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter.
I'm sure there's a good story behind it.
There is. I raised, yeah. We could go into another story, but we won't do that.
See, now you're all prepped. You're like ready to go. And that sounds interesting, right?
I am. Yeah, I tried to stay away from the story I had this morning where I was like woke up flustered and because of a bunch of stuff that happened over the weekend. And then, but we won't go into that story.
No, but you can package it when you're ready and you can share it and you can share the lessons from it and people will relate to that. I think we all relate to Monday mornings being a little bit more difficult, especially the first Monday of the month. There's just so many different things that are going on.
Exactly. And I'm sure there are other people who have spent Friday night working later than they had planned so that they thought, well, Monday, that should make Monday easy. And then Monday hit with all the emails, with all of the challenges.
So the reason we're telling you this is because this Friday, cut it off at 5 because no matter what, your Monday is going to be chaos. So you might as well enjoy your Friday evening and get it done.
Exactly. Ryan, thank you so much. I hope you will plan on joining us another time.
I will keep an eye out for your tweet chat. I had a lot of fun. It was great engagement. And I'm a big fan of the community that's really built because it's not just me sharing my answers. It's everybody sharing their experience, their story. And I love to learn as much as I like to share.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Again, if you want to connect with Ryan, I'm signing up for the chance to get the book. Go to ryan.online/sign up. And obviously, there's a lot of fun to be had by signing up. Thank you again for joining us on USA Biz Party. There he is. Thank you for joining us on USA Biz Party. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about May the Fours be with you. May 4th is the 4th, which is Star Wars Day. We thought we would turn it into a fun chat to talk about fours. So join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for some fun with fours. Thank you for joining us today, and make it a great week.